Most people don't even know that they exist, but instead of distinct stripes, like our striped species, they have like a few squiggly lines and then some spots, and that's where they get their name, Spotted Skunk. They do a handstand, which is really unique, and it makes them look larger, and they've got this big bushy tail that kind of like splays out. Since the 1940s, their populations have declined like an estimated 99%. So we're looking statewide to try to figure out, where are these guys occurring. Once we get skunks in an area and confirm it, we go out and live trap. Once we catch them and we all get sprayed, we put a little collar on them and it transmits. We go out then after we send them off with their little collar, and we can either triangulate position or we can home into a den site. We do this during the day because in the daytime they're just chilling in their den, and we can go figure out, is that a downed log? Is it a burrow? Before I started my master's, I didn't think about their relevance. They do have their place, as everything does. If we miss one piece, everything else kind of starts to get out of whack.
The award-winning Tennessee WildCast is on the air with the latest on hunting, fishing, boating, wildlife watching, and all things outdoors. Make welcome your host, drummer and outdoor expert novice, Jason Harmon.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Tennessee WildCast. We're glad you're tuning in. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We got another fun show lined up for you today. Miss Mimi Barnes she's always lining us up some good stuff, helping me co-host and making our shows great. So I'm excited to talk about skunks today. This could get stinky.
The skunk woman is here.
Yes, Miss Lindsay Shaw. So I'm excited.
Yeah, good one.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Before we get started, I want to highlight a radio station. We appreciate our radio partners out there. We're out on 30 plus stations now, and we're also on Carbon TV, YouTube TV. I say YouTube TV, YouTube, Facebook. You can watch us just about anywhere. But WBMC out of McMinnville, not too far from McMinnville here in Crossville. So thought I'd highlight them today. You can listen to WildCast on Sunday mornings from 12:30 to 1. So just appreciate those guys. Appreciate the guys and gals who run our shows out there on the radio.
Yeah, they're great shows too. So if people aren't listening, share, because they're great shows.
Yeah,
always learn something.
It just takes a click to share it. Yeah. One click, like us, share us, and follow us. So anyway, today, like we said, all about spotted skunks. I'm sure we'll dive into some more additional things too. No telling where we'll get today, but we appreciate Lindsay being with us.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, thanks, Lindsay. Spotted skunks. Who knows about the spotted skunks? I know, Lindsay Shaw.
Well, until I started working here and heard you mention spotted skunk, I did not know there were really different skunks. You don't think about it.
Yeah, so we have two spotted skunks, but before we dive into the spotted skunks, let's hear more about her.
Definitely, I'm all about it. So tell us about yourself and kind of what you do for the agency and that sort of thing.
I'm just a regular mom. That comes first. Regular mom, 2 kids, 2 dogs, live in the woods. I've always been semi-feral, is how some of my friends describe me. Okay. Just outdoors from the time I was a little kid. So naturally, wildlife, being outside, working with this stuff was just the right path for me. I got into it a little bit late. So anybody out there who, maybe you're in your 30s and you think, well, this is not a path for me anymore. It absolutely is.
Wow, yeah.
I've only worked for the agency for about 1.5 years after I finished school. And I work in Region 3 biodiversity, so anything non-game is what we're looking at, mostly rare, threatened, endangered species. But it's something different every day. So I may be working with bats one week, back to the skunk stuff another week, wood rats, salamanders, you name it, we're on it.
Wow. That's cool. And that's great encouragement for anybody who's thinking about getting into a wildlife career, even an officer. We have people ask about that. Is it too late, or how old do you need to be? Do you have to have this degree or that degree? But if you're looking to pursue something in wildlife, right, it's never too late.
And you have 2 boys and they're active, and
right,
you still did it.
And I was mom first, student second, and I'm still mom first, biologist second. But, I didn't follow that traditional 4-year path. It took a lot longer when I went back because I was part-time. So I was there for school pickup, drop off, volunteer, it's not too late. If you want it, go get it.
And still an avid hunter and angler.
Awesome.
Yep, I love it all.
Yeah.
Awesome. So were you in a wildlife field before
no,
this?
I was just mom.
Just mom,
and went before my kids started kindergarten and everything, and we're gone all the time at school. It would be a pretty day like today, and I'd say, well, let's just tear out to the mountains or whatever, go to the park.
Yeah.
Is what we called Great Smoky Mountains National Park. My mother-in-law at the time was like, "Oh, you're just going to the park down the road." I was like, "No, we're going to the mountains today."
Yeah.
Pack a picnic, throw on your snow boots. If they got snow and we didn't, go play. Just enjoy what we're blessed with in Tennessee.
Awesome. So you were already out there looking for these critters before
Well,
you were
yeah.
officially looking for them.
No, you cut her, she bleeds orange and green like the rest of us. though.
Okay, good, good. UT orange, right? Or what orange are we talking
Yeah.
about?
Our orange.
I got you, yeah.
What is UT orange?
It
isn't
is. It's pretty close. Yeah, real close. Well, that's great, and it's cool to hear, a non-game biologist who still loves to hunt and fish and
Yeah.
chase all the other critters too.
Yeah, and I always thought that I wanted to work with deer or elk. That was kind of my goal when
Yeah.
I started.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Didn't know that about you.
Yeah, so like cervids were my thing. Like this is what I want to do. I love to deer hunt. I love to go up, just north of where I live to the Elk Tower and see those fantastic
yeah.
animals. I've never gotten drawn yet. Still got my fingers crossed.
Yep. Put my name in the hat every year.
Right, right. But yeah, that was what I wanted to do. But because I was kind of non-traditional, I was sort of restricted to where I could go and what I could take as far as my master's degree. And that's how I fell into this. The opportunity was there, and it was with a professor I really adored. And I knew that we would work well together. And I thought, well, okay, what the heck? And now I'm glad that I ended up here, because I think if I did work with deer and such full time, maybe I would enjoy getting out and hunting less, because I'd be
Yeah.
kind of worn out on it.
I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I get to do kind of all the fun miscellaneous stuff in the state and then still enjoy my recreation time with our game species.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. It's really
Very
cool. We're just gonna copy each other today. Awesome and cool. So we have a spotted skunk on the table.
A poor, wretched, old
Yes.
taxidermy mount.
It's an old one, and it's faded. So they are black and white, correct?
Yes.
So let's dive into a little bit about this skunk and get some details behind it.
Okay, so if you can see the one on the table, it is markedly smaller than the striped skunks. And so almost everybody in Tennessee is familiar with our native striped skunk.
Yep. I almost stepped on one going in the woods the other day.
Right. You don't have to, especially people who own dogs, you don't have to tell them about the species. They know.
Yeah.
But the spotted skunk is smaller. I usually describe it as maybe like a fox squirrel in size, and it looks more weaselly in appearance.
It does. It does.
So most people don't even know that they exist. They are out there.
Secretive.
It's hard to see the color on this fella. But instead of, just one or two or three like distinct stripes, like our striped species, they have like a few squiggly lines and then some spots just to break up that coloration. That's where they get their name, Spotted Skunk.
So is it true? So we get phone calls, emails, messages about all black striped skunks, all white striped skunks. Tell us about the coloration of the spotted skunk. Is it true that they're all the same?
So they will have different patterns, and there's actually some talk in the works about being able to identify individuals based on those patterns and camera photos and stuff like that. But for the most part, they'll all have like a dot on their forehead. They've got a few squiggly lines. They vary, but not as much as the striped skunks vary in their pelage.
So a lot harder to tell an individual
Right.
spotted skunk from a striped skunk.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Are they long lived?
Just a few years.
Okay, just
Yeah,
a few years. Okay.
And so they reproduce about the same time as the striped skunks. Everybody knows when that's happening.
That's
because
going to be
we
one of my
smell
questions.
it.
Yeah.
Smell it
Dead skunks on the
everywhere.
road.
That's right. And just just stench everywhere. But it's like late winter, very, very early spring. And then they'll have their kits about a month and a half to 2 months later. And within 3 months, those kits are the size of an adult.
Oh,
And
wow.
on their own at that point?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's going, they're weaned at about 8 weeks.
Okay. Okay.
Wow.
Wow. I didn't know it was
Yeah.
that fast.
Pretty quick.
So they're out there roaming around for mating season, January, February then. And that smell is just because they don't know where they're going and
They're just out and about en masse.
okay.
Yeah.
And running into things that are a little bit scary maybe in an area they're not
Right.
necessarily as and that is when we see and we start getting questions, why are there so many dead skunks on the road?
Right.
Okay.
And, and the smell, it's a defense, right?
Yes.
That's why they spray, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
And they're not just out there.
No, and it doesn't make it. They have to make their scent,
Oh,
so
cool.
it's metabolically costly to expend it all. So they're not going to want to spray unless they really feel it's necessary,
That's
because it's going to
interesting.
take some time to recharge.
Like the predator, a dog is seen as a predator. So
Right.
that's why. And they aim for those olfactory senses, right? So they're going for the eyes, the mouth, the
Yes.
nose to stop that predator.
Interesting. That's cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
Recharge. It's like
Yeah.
Hang on, let me reload.
yeah.
Right.
I can
Right.
see the little meter.
How many babies do they typically have, and are they in a little den site? Where are they going to
Right.
be?
So they'll be born in a den in the like late spring, very early summer, usually up to 6 kits or so for these guys. And a den site is anything from a rock shelter to a dug burrow to a down log, that kind of stuff.
Wow, I didn't know that.
I'm learning a lot today. I didn't know a lot of this stuff. This is cool.
So how did you specifically get interested in this animal?
Well, I fell into it with my master's
Yeah.
work because I didn't end up going the route I thought I would. I jagged, and that's fine because I love them. I knew of them before I started my master's work, but I just didn't think a lot of them. I knew they were out there, but they're almost entirely nocturnal, so people generally never see them. Yeah.
Even with your studies, it's hard to find them. I mean,
They are.
you're on purpose looking for them a lot of times.
Right. So we're looking statewide to try to figure out, where are these guys occurring. With that, we want to eventually match like vegetation and other habitat features to figure out, well, okay, can we find any correlation between where they are and what is there, like in a broader landscape level? So that's the point of the camera study that we're doing. And because they're so cryptic and hard to find, even when we know they're in a spot, we bait our camera sites. So that brings all the boys to the yard. We get not just these guys, but I was joking. I could do a second master's just on all the coyotes peeing, on the trees that I bait. I don't know
Wow.
what that's about.
Wow.
But every single one comes through, they got to pee right at my bait site. So that's interesting. That's another fun kind of side part of the project is just going through all these camera captures.
Very cool.
And we get everything from gray fox to these guys to birds, you name it.
That's awesome.
There's one other thing we were talking about before the show that's really cool about them. Tell us what they do compared to a striped skunk before they spray.
Okay, so a striped skunk, everybody already knows. You just want to stay away from them. And if they lift that tail, then you better be heading the other way. These guys not only rely on being black and white to let predators know that there's a danger, and that they're going to stink them up, but they do a handstand, which is really unique.
Oh,
and it makes
handstand.
them look larger. It displays, their full backside of their body with all of that coloration. I've never been able to get it on camera, but there's really good videos on YouTube. And they've got this big bushy tail that kind of like splays out.
Wow.
It really looks completely different than anything else we have going on.
Yeah, that's
Not just a tail lift. It's a whole.
Right, you're getting-
excuse me, Mr. Bear. It's a whole.
You're getting a whole display
Yeah.
before you're really in trouble.
wow. So everything for such a small animal, they're doing everything they can to scare something off
Right.
before they expend that.
Right.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. What are they out there eating?
So these guys are omnivores, but they're considered mesocarnivores, which means that like 50 to 70% of their diet is made up of meat, which is more than the striped skunk. So they will rely on insects and stuff like that, but these guys, for being cute, they are vicious.
Really?
And if they get a hold of me sometimes through my gloves, and I'm like, oh yeah, you definitely tearing apart some rodents.
Yeah.
So they're out there looking for anything they can find as opportunistic feeders, but they'll also eat carrion and stuff like that, kind of the cleanup crew trash. One was found near a dumpster at a Hardee's. And I was like, I'm glad I've been out at Catoosa, for 4 years, getting Lyme disease and whatever else. And I could have just been at Hardee's with a breakfast burrito, like, hey, okay, we got one.
Yeah.
But they'll anything they can find. But they are meat eaters.
So I've heard you talk about this, and it is fascinating. But here we are, as a hunting and fishing agency primarily, but we're tasked with the care of all Tennessee's wildlife for future generations and use for future generations. But why should we care about those non-game species, including the spotted skunk?
So I get asked this question a lot, and I think it's one of the most difficult questions there is, because my first thought is, well, why wouldn't you care? I think that we, and that by we, I mean humans and every species that we have,
Yeah.
are all in it together, and we're all here for balance and health of the ecosystem as a whole. So just because, like before I started my master's, I didn't think about them that much. I didn't think about their relevance. They do have their place, as everything does. And if we miss one piece, everything else kind of starts to get out of whack.
Great point.
Yeah.
So what's the habitat they're utilizing as an agency? We're talking about grasslands being imperiled and these different ecosystems across the state. What's the spotted skunk utilizing?
So that's what we're still trying to figure out. And half the camera spots I show up to where we've had a positive hit, I'm looking around and I'm going, well, this is just the woods. There's nothing particular that I can pick out about it. Now, we do take all the vegetation data as far as tree species, sight lines, and distances from that point, and all of that stuff.
Wow.
And that all eventually will be combined, and we'll go through all the statistics and see what sticks out.
So that was one of the questions we had.
Yeah, I think it's interesting how they're you're looking for all kinds of different data right there, not just find the skunk.
Right. We're trying to find what matters to them.
Yeah.
And the idea there is, I don't know if I mentioned it already, but these guys used to occur in 28 states, which is over half of the continental U.S.
Okay.
So Florida to Texas, all the way up to Canada, and then over to the Appalachians, this big, like, kind of squiggly square. And since the 1940s, their populations have declined like an estimated 99%.
Wow.
Which is serious.
Right. So why? I
And
want to know why.
we don't know yet.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, while we're trying to figure out why this is occurring, we want to know where in Tennessee could we possibly find these guys. And you think about it, like, as a state agency, we're working on mostly public land. Well, that's like 10% of the state of Tennessee.
Yep.
So we got 90% of the state that, I can't just go put a camera out there, and I can't just, walk out there and ask everybody in 90% of the state to be looking out for these guys, although I am now.
Hey, come on over to my house. We'll put a camera
Yeah,
out.
yeah. We do have some great landowners. Maybe we had one guy, one was eating cat food in his basement.
I remember.
So, yeah, and
In the
so-
basement.
right, in the basement.
Got inside.
I know, and other people have just gotten them kind of passively on cameras, and then they get interested. So we do have folks with private land who give us some permissions when they think about them and get interested. So that's nice. But
Well, I'm glad we're sharing this today, so
Yeah.
that folks, if they know this, and they can reach out.
right.
That's cool.
So you're hoping to find out their overall populations. Talk a little bit about what all are you looking for? The vegetation. What else when you're studying the
Right.
animal?
So when we're baiting, if you think about it, we're trying to draw them in because they're such a cryptic species and they're hard to find even when they are in an area. So, say I bait right here in the middle of the office and one comes in here to our bait. Well, that doesn't mean that the office is what they prefer. So I can't say anything about the local level characteristics, but at a landscape level, we can look at what they prefer and where that exists elsewhere in the state. So that can be used to inform management decisions down the road. If we know, well, this patch, here on this WMA or this forest or whatever matches these parameters where we found this one at Catoosa or whatever else, then those managers can make better decisions moving forward. Same with the den site end of things. So that's not baited. That's just once we get skunks in an area and confirm it, we go out and live trap. That's where the real fun starts.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say. So
Right.
how do you go about studying a spotted skunk then?
Right. So,
You got to catch it.
yes, we have to catch them. And people always say, well, don't they spray? And I say, yeah, they do. They sure do. I always volunteer to hold the skunk, and then that way I can just aim
can
it
direct.
wherever else.
So here's where I tell on her. I'm gonna talk about your kicking outfits that you wear that are runway special,
Right.
and consist of all white Tyvek and shower caps.
All right.
We added the shower caps this year because my advisor actually got sprayed in the hair one year, and her husband was like, "You're gonna have to sleep in the garage, honey." She ended up using, I think, like Dawn dish soap and like coffee grounds
Wow.
or something to kind of neutralize
Mask
it.
it. Yeah.
I mean, even we put all of our backpacks and stuff a good distance away from where we work the skunk up. And even then, that stuff lives on the porch at my house for like a month.
So how do you go about that study of the skunk? You're looking at overall vegetation at first, or
Right, with just presence absence. So we're seeing, are they here? What's around? And that, like I said, the local level with the baited stuff is not pertinent because we're biasing that by baiting. But we can look at landscape level, so forested, grassland, distance to roads, ag, water, that kind of stuff. And then with the den site stuff, so once we catch them and we all get sprayed, we put a little collar on them and it transmits. So if you've ever hound hunted, Mimi knows I'd work plot hounds into this somehow.
Yeah.
If you've ever hound hunted, it's just like the old beep collars before everybody had fancy GPS units. But we go out then after we send them off with their little collar, and we can either triangulate position or we can home into a den site. We do this during the day because they're almost entirely nocturnal. So in the daytime, they're just chilling in their den, and we can go figure out, is that a snag? Is that a downed log? Is it a burrow? Is it a rock den? That kind of stuff. And then, we didn't bait them to that site. So then we can take those local level characteristics at those spots.
Yeah. This is their home now. This is what they like.
Right.
Yeah.
and I can say I've been with her when she's trekking too, and I said she's like a gazelle, very sure-footed. but she's also getting into some areas that most of us would look at and be like, not so sure about
Yeah,
it.
it can be tough because
Yeah.
you think they're that size, I'm this size. They're getting through vegetation that I'm literally going to be crawling through.
Yeah.
So
It's a tough job sometimes.
it
can
is.
be
it
strenuous.
is.
Yeah.
But it's not sitting in an office, so
Yeah.
it works for me.
Yeah.
So we're not the only ones studying this skunk, or what's going on a broader scale to understand this
Right.
animal?
So there's actually the Eastern Spotted Skunk Cooperative Study Group, which consists
Who
of
knew?
state agencies and universities in almost all of those 28 states where their range used to occur. And it varies. Some state agencies have actual, dedicated studies in conjunction with research universities. Some just put the call out, for crowdsourcing people who have seen one. But for the most part, everybody is sharing information. If someone has a DNA study and I pick one up roadkill, they may want a tissue sample for their study. And so there's a lot of sharing of information because all of us are hurting for data when it comes to these guys.
Wow.
We're all on the same playing field. It's like
Right.
looking for the same stuff. It's not a competition. It comes to
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
So one of the questions we had was, what are the challenges of studying this animal? And I guess you've just thrown a couple out there. You're crawling
Right.
on your belly to get to 'em.
Yes, and
Find them, yeah.
just finding them. I'll put cameras out at spots where we've had them consistently, and I might not get one for 6 months, and then,
Wow.
in the 7th month, here it comes, Peter and bye.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I think they're on to me too. But aside from that, they're smart. They're little, and owls are their number one predator.
Oh, I meant to ask
So-
that. So I know owls are going after striped skunks.
Right, these guys too. So
Wow.
they're wanting to be really cautious, have a lot of cover, that kind of stuff. So they're they're pretty cagey. They're not going to come around for anything.
Interesting.
Yeah.
In the time we have left, let's talk a little bit about what do people do if they see a spotted skunk. We used to
Yeah.
have info in the hunting guide. What do people do if they see a spotted skunk?
Holler at your girl. Call your
The skunk lady.
call your TWRA office.
And those numbers are in the guide or on the website. Yeah.
Right, email, anything. It'll get to the right place. We have versions of me in all 4 regions looking for these guys. I have great coworkers who have helped, even when this was just a master's project. So any of those folks can get on the case.
So it's not just your region. You're looking at all across the
This is
state.
statewide.
Yep.
And the poor Region 1 guys, historically in Tennessee, they occurred from the mountains almost to the Mississippi River. The furthest west we found them in this study is just into Region 2. So they've lost a lot of ground that we can tell. But the Region 1 guys got out there for me every year and looked, despite that we didn't really expect them to be there.
But hoping.
Right.
It would have been a great
There's
surprise.
A lot of work that's gone into it.
Well, and if you don't put in the work, you're not gonna get the results.
Right.
But yeah, that just shows you that we're at it. You guys are working so hard to
Right.
Well,
get that data.
I think about how many hunters we have out there that have out game cameras. And I know on my property we have a lot of cameras out. And we might get a spotted skunk on camera. And if you're not familiar with the animal, please familiarize yourself with it.
Yeah.
And if they get a picture, all the better for you, right?
Right.
And then if they get the Sasquatch, Bigfoot, make sure that one gets sent in too.
We want
right?
to see it.
Right.
We definitely want to see it. We'll put up your email address, Lindsay, real
That's
big.
fine. I mean, it would be non-game, so.
Hey, there you go. There's no permits. Okay.
So tell us a little bit about that citizen science part of it too that you rely on.
Yeah. So
Not just for spotted skunks, but
things like iNaturalist are great because they give just everyday folks, like this contributory role in the whole thing. And like I was saying about the amount of private versus public land we have, we really rely on everybody else out there who's keeping an eye out to supply us with some of that data. I look on iNaturalist for stuff. I found an occurrence where one of these guys had been roadkill in Blount County. We hadn't previously found them on our cameras in Blount County, so it was helpful to know, okay, we didn't get them on our cameras, but here's one that's roadkill in Blount County, so we can count that. And I think it's a great way to get people interested. It not just benefits us, but to me, it's always a benefit when people know more about what's occurring in their state and they get an interest in it.
so even roadkill is looked at as an occurrence.
Yes.
So it's important that if someone sees a dead spotted skunk,
Right. You don't have to pick it up.
But you'll come pick it up.
I'll pick it up. One lived in my basement freezer for, it was about a week before my family was finally like, you got to get that out of here. And it lives in Region 4 in a freezer there now.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of data you're pulling off of that, including the genetics that are helping that broader study, which is so good to know. And I'm so grateful that there are people out there looking at the non-game side of it. So thank you so much for what you and your counterparts do across the state. So a couple other things. Tell us about the time where you learned that you needed shoe covers.
Oh gosh. Well, I feel like every year in trapping season, we add some other necessary piece. Like, so we added the shower caps because someone got sprayed in the hair and that was hard to get out. And so this year we were like, well, we got shower caps. We've got it all handled. No. Because even though we're putting our stuff away and we've got our shower caps and we've got our Tyvek and everything, what we didn't factor in was that when the skunk inevitably sprays during handling, that hits the ground and then we're walking through it. So yeah, that was exciting. I got home and I was like, man, I threw my Tyvek away at the dump and I've changed my clothes. What the heck? No, it's all over my shoes, in my truck, in the office.
Oh yeah, track it everywhere.
Yeah.
And then really quickly, we get a lot of questions about dogs being sprayed. So that peroxide, baking soda.
Right. Stay away from water to begin with.
Really? Okay.
Right, because it's not going to do anything for those oils.
And then and that recipe can be found online. Just do a Google search. Anything else we're missing about spotted skunks?
I'll just Google them if you've never seen one. They're amazing. Get on YouTube.
Yeah.
Look at those handstands. They're just really interesting critters.
And if
Gymnastics.
if you see one, if you get a photo, contact your regional office, biodiversity, or go on iNaturalist because you all are watching.
Yeah, we'll
iNaturalist.
keep an eye out.
Cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So to contact us, tnwildlife.org. You'll find numbers, email addresses, and all that kind of stuff right there. You can let us know. I'd love to see them. Thank you for being on
Absolutely.
today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, very cool.
This has been fun, and we'll come back again, get with you on some wood rats and some other critters that you're chasing out there
Sounds
too.
good.
Awesome. Well, Mimi, thank you.
pleasure.
Once again, another great show under our belt.
Very fun.
Hope you guys out there watching and listening have enjoyed it. Keep coming back, keep liking, keep sharing, keep watching, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in. Stay connected with TWRA by visiting our website at tnwildlife.org and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Hey, it's all about Tennessee wildlife. It's what we do. Tennessee WildCast will be on the air again next week. We'll see you then.